So, where to begin? I tested HIV positive at the Gay and Lesbian Services Center in Los Angeles. I was in the Marine Corps before that. I really didn't want to come out to my family for a while. I tested positive in like 1985, 86, but I didn't want to come out to my family right at the beginning. But I thought, I'm not doing anybody any good by me not being part of the HIV community. So I began telling my story being HIV positive in the VA system. As time went on, people were dying, and it was really freaking me out. All my friends were passing away, and I was, oh man, just devastated with all the people I was seeing dying. And I was wondering if I was going to be next, But I kept surviving for some reason or another. So I thought there's got to be a reason for me to keep going. Well, I lived in Idaho, and I decided I was going to get involved with the HIV community in Idaho. But also we were starting AIDS Watch. So my partner at the time and we kept driving back and forth from Los Angeles to Pocatello, Idaho. And we began at the very beginning with AIDS Watch, and I was probably one of the only people from the north there that was participating in HIV awareness. So when I would find myself in Washington, D.C. representing people living with AIDS in a rural community, I was probably picked by every state around me as part of a community that was living with HIV. Montana, Wyoming, even Utah didn't send anybody for quite a while. It was very interesting, and we used to get very involved because this was the only outlet we had with people living with HIV, especially from a rural setting. We didn't talk about it in our rural communities. We only had the opportunity to talk about it when we were in settings like this, like advocating for people living with AIDS in Washington, D.C., and going to AIDS conferences in Denver, Colorado. I looked forward to communicating with people like that. And then I got involved with the HIV Prevention Planning Group for the state of Idaho, and we started educating people, or trying to educate people, about HIV. And this was back in 95, 96. People were not ready to hear about it. They were thinking it was still a gay disease, and it took women becoming HIV positive through HIV tests, through pregnancy tests at the State Departments and stuff like this, for them to begin to realize that we've got a problem with HIV in our state. I went to Washington, D.C. and represented Idaho with a woman who came from northern Idaho, and she was not willing to come out with her status at home because her husband owned a business, and if they were to come out HIV positive and owning the business up there, their business would have suffered. So she suffered in silence with her status, and she was a mother. It was scenes like this that, gosh, it was horrible back then. And it didn't really get much better for the longest time. My partner in 1995, we were advocating for HIV in the state of Idaho, and he passed away in April 1st of 1995. When he passed away, I could no longer do this. I was devastated when he passed away. So I withdrew from my advocating, and I went to live in the mountains. I was hosting campgrounds for the Forest Service. I was just anything to get away from HIV. I wasn't really wanting to deal with it anymore. But every once in a while, HIV advocatism, would come looking for me. So I would get involved with the community in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Circle of Harmony HIV/AIDS conference that they do there. I was helping them out quite a bit when I was in New Mexico. And I found that the Native community was struggling just as bad, or if not worse, than we were. A woman who, I like to quote what she said about AIDS in the Native community. And they looked at it as American Indians dying silently because they were not willing to come forth with their status. They would rather go off and suffer with themselves. I've just seen so much suffering around HIV. And then in 2010, I began to get really sick, and I found out that I also was coming down with a cancer. HPV virus and the HIV virus, working on the immune system can really play havoc. I found out that I had cancer. I had to go through chemo and radiation, and I almost didn't make it through that. My doctor in Salt Lake City, after I got through going through the chemo and the radiation, told me, he says, I really didn't know if you were going to make it through. I really didn't have any hope for you. But I didn't want you to lose hope, to any hope that you had, so I didn't really tell you until after the fact, until after you came through, that there might not be a chance that you would pull through this. So I now live with a colostomy. The tumor in my rectum was so bad they had to take it out and close me up down there. Living with HIV is different than living with HIV and cancer. If you have cancer and HIV, you have it's just awful. I have this stigma about, where do I fit in? Do I fit in on HIV? Do I fit in cancer? I feel so alienated at times. So I think what I'm really trying to say is, us that are living with HIV for a long period of time, we need to be concerned about other diseases that are coming along with HIV.